it's like the idea of the big idea. Like, you don't know it was a big idea until it's already been successful. You might have had 10 big ideas, but they all of a sudden became small ideas because they failed.
What you can do is always have something else in the chamber. And if you're creative, once you get yourself into the mode of doing it every day, this stuff is written in your head.
This is one of the worst, best successes. So I wrote a promo called the 70-cent crypto, and it went nuts. It made like $5 million in the first 48 hours. He's like, congratulations, it's working. It was my second promo. I was very happy, I was very proud. But like a week or two later, they told me, okay, so your royalties, we have to tell you something.
Hi, it's Mark Ford. It's good to meet you. This is my first attempt at doing a podcast. Today I wanted to talk to a young man I met recently who I thought had a very interesting observation about copywriting. Copywriting is something I spent my whole career doing, advising on, consulting and so on, but I went to a seminar and he spoke about a way to make sure that copy is really strong. And although I was familiar with the concepts, the way he put them together really kind of stuck with me. And it's not often that I hear people talking about copy and copy techniques that feel fresh and strong to me. So I wanted to get him back and talk to him personally and kind of reignite that interest I had in those ideas, because I think it'll take good copywriters to another level. I feel certain that if I apply this to the copy I'm reviewing now, even at the highest level, the guys that I work with that are making $600,000, $700,000 a year, I think it's going to improve their copy. And so I'd like to introduce you to Kyle Milligan. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So here's what I guess before we begin, I should ask you a little bit about your career. I don't follow anybody's career anymore, and if I did, I would forget it anyway. But I heard that you're not only a very successful copywriter, but a coach of copywriters, and you've had a lot of success even in the financial area, which for me may be the most competitive of all the areas of copywriting, which is why they make so much money. So maybe you could just give me and the audience a little bio.
Yeah, the short, like, bullet point resume run. 2017, I joined Agora Financial on, like, its way up to that super high peak of like $300 million a year. Ubaldo Albuquerque was my copy chief. Joe Schrafer hired me. I immediately started working under Ubaldo. I think I was probably like his first full-time junior.
Wow.
And that's where I came up. And I think, looking back, that influence was super critical.
Yeah, that's so funny. I'm so glad that you said that, because I was just thinking today that Joe Schreifer might be one of the best hires we ever made at Agora. I said that to him 8 years ago when he was still coming up, but it's not only is he, I sit in on meetings and he's always saying to me exactly the right thing, but he's mentored some of our very best people, two of our publishers, Pete Coyne, Matt Inslee. I think there's even another one, are mentors of his, and they're so good in marketing. It's like you're this lineage, it's like you're a Gracie martial artist, and you learn directly from Helio to Hickson, and now, so that's great.
Well, one of the things that I'm like super, like, I don't know, like grateful, like if I had like a gratitude board or something like that, I talked to Joe 2 days ago. It's like you just said, like Joe's mentored a bunch of people, and to me, I am always like, I call him and he calls back, I am still surprised.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, why?
Yeah.
We actually, you and I had a conversation in a similar format, like right there, I don't know, 4 years ago, and I talked to you about this same sort of mentality, where I even asked you directly, I was like, what could I bring to someone like you? I remember, because it was important to me.
Yeah.
You said your energy and your fresh ideas, which funny is how I ended up right back here. Was I came to that thing, I did the presentation, I brought my energy and my ideas, and you were like, I want to have a conversation with you, so that's all I brought. But yeah, so I'm in a jam, me and Joe get on the phone, I ask him what he's been up to. He's been doing epic things. He's gone to he's not just a copywriter or just a publisher, he's working on bigger things with bigger people. And he tells me all of this, and he's like, "What about you, bud?" And I'm like, this shit sounds so petty now. Like I'm also almost always calling to bitch about something. Like I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. So I call Joe, like, help me. And he does. And again, like, I don't even understand it. And I think, though, when I think about like positive influences in my life and people that like, not to glaze Joe too hard, but I just don't know that I'll ever have like that patience that Joe demonstrates with, at least with me. Maybe he's an asshole to everybody else and I never see it and I don't understand why he's nice to me, but it just feels like he's always like, I'll call you right back. Hey buddy, like, everything okay? I'll get right back to you. Like he's, that to me has always stuck out. Like, I know he's, like, that's the thing, like, I guess he's a marketing genius, right? I guess he's really good at his job. But what I notice is when I'm in a bind and I'm looking for someone, and usually my bind is due to my abrasive personality, is like, hey Joe, I'm in a situation where I want to tell someone to fuck off. What would you say in the nice way?
See, this is why you're way ahead of me, because when I was your age, I was the same one. I had the same personality. But I didn't call anybody before I said the abrasive thing. I would call, I didn't even have to call, because my partners would call me in and say, I heard you said this to so-and-so, and how do I get out of it? So, and of course, being that kind of personality, I'd be like, fuck them. But it's interesting because it's related to that first question you asked, because I think some people may feel that way, you know, when somebody is in a position of prestige or power or what have you, you feel like you can't give them anything, but you can. And what I say is, there's two things. I think when I said your energy and ideas, I was talking about you as a potential employee, somebody that could help me get rich. That's what I look for. Ambition. I look for intelligence. Intelligence definitely matters, and competitiveness. And the key thing that you need to make things grow in any business is trust, because the whole relationship between being mentored and moving on is that if somebody mentors you, you have to be loyal to them. If you're not, if you're not grateful and give back, I mean, that's the whole idea. As we get older, younger people eventually replace us, and if they're lower, if they're loyal to us, they won't kick us out on the icebergs anymore. So there's that, I think, and that's critical to all success in business, and I think it's a natural thing that we recognize. The other side is that sometimes the other thing that you can bring to people in those positions, people that don't need anything, is just your appreciation of them. You know, when you're in that situation, you know, you're being competitive. It's nice to be able to talk to people that think that you have something to say. You know, as you get older, that kind of fades away too. So there's, you know, I think what you brought all that. You're young. You were going to do something, so you had the potential. If I was going to do business with you, your potential to make money. The core issue for me is, are you going to be loyal? It's going to be a trustworthy thing, or am I going to get you to a point where you're just going to, you know, go off and say goodbye to me?
And speaking of there's two things there. The generational thing, the lineage that you mentioned. So, in a way, this lineage, like, it doesn't start with Joe. It starts with you making the Joe hire. Did you directly hire Joe, or did he just get hired through the organization? Or
I don't remember whether I did, but I do remember that, like I said, in fact, the reason that Joe is one of a very few number of people that are running Agora is because I insisted on it, that he had to be there, because I felt from 7 or 8 years ago, whenever we were in Dubai or whatever the hell we had that meeting, I recognized that this is the right guy. This is a guy. It's not just copy. He understands marketing very deeply. He understands sales. He understands communication, how to motivate people. He's got it all figured out. He's actually much more diplomatic than I was.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Is the funny thing is, you know, I hear people speak on how talented he is at copy and marketing, and honestly, I rarely go to him for that.
Yeah.
I go for the diplomacy.
Right.
Like, I'm in a bind,
right,
and it's probably a bind of my own creation, or it's a bind that I see as a bind. What would you say here?
Yeah.
Because what I say, I know, I've been in this situation enough times to know what I'm about to say is going to terminate it. It's like going to create, like, it's going to burn a bridge.
Right.
It's going to end some things. It's like when your client asks a question, you're like, I know I'm not allowed to say no, but no.
Yeah.
Like, what do I say instead?
Yeah.
And he's always, that's always been the thing where it's like, what would Joe do? The other thing about the lineage I was saying, and like the hierarchy of, like, you know, you hired Joe, Joe hired me. It is, you and I are separated by that generation, you could say, but I am, in a way, you know, you talk about loyalty, because I got my start at Agora, which is how this whole thing started. You asked me, like, my career, my bio. I got my start there. Everything I touched turned to gold. And a lot of that had to do with, I would say, mostly Evaldo, his oversight on my copy, and then Joe basically just probably opening some doors, and Evaldo opening some doors. But it is that fact of, I was like one of these, like, I had said I would never get another 9-to-5 job. I wanted to be a writer. I didn't know I wanted to be a copywriter. I didn't know what copywriting was. And that I got that opportunity, that I keep coming back to Agora and writing projects at Agora and trying to find my way back. And there's a part of me that feels this sort of indebted reciprocity, because I know there are places I could go. I know there are places, and this stings sometimes, because there are people in the middle now who weren't there, who are now like publishers. Like Joe's ascended in a way, right? And it's like, they maybe not have the same faith in me or belief in me, so I get like one shot. You know, like, hey, we got a front end we can't sell. This right here, Mark, this drives me nuts. I'm gonna complain. I show up. I'm like, hey, I'm Kyle. I used to work here. Can I work on some projects? Sure. Here's a front end we couldn't sell if it came like with fucking crack and heroin all over it. Sold it to drug addicts. We couldn't sell it. Do it. And I go, okay, I'll give it my best. It didn't. I didn't sell it. Let's try another project. Well, that first one didn't work out so good. So, well, let's see how things pan out, or, you know.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, there's this conversation that I hear at all publishers, which is like, I show up, hey, I'm Kyle. In the case of Agora, I used to work here, or if it's another publisher, it's like, I used to work with so-and-so, or I trained your writers. And it's like, great. You know, they always say this, it's crazy to me. We have our back-end writers on lock. They're doing great, but we cannot get the front end working. So I get like one swing at their unsolvable problem, and then I always am like, if these are your best writers, why aren't they solving your unsolvable problem? Why is an outsider?
Why are they doing the easiest kind of copy?
Why? So
back-end copy.
That's a personal gripe that I have.
I think it's a legitimate gripe, because I see it from the other side. When I hear from a publisher that they gave that person a chance and it didn't work out, I'm like, I'm going to fire that publisher, because the problem when you do that is, if you don't know copy yourself, you're going to tend to do that. You have no idea. Somebody comes, they write a piece of copy, it doesn't work, and then you're like, okay, that person can't do their job. Well, to be a good publisher of information publishing, you have to be able to recognize good copy. And being a publisher, you can become a publisher through the marketing, through the editorial. There's a lot of ways to become a publisher at Agora and elsewhere. It doesn't mean that you know a good copy. If you recognize good copy, that somebody knows how to write copy, and I'm sure that's what happened with you and Evaldo and Joe, then you're going to stick with that person. So you have to, you cannot work with copywriters if you don't understand copy, or if you do, then you should negotiate like 6 jobs and not solve my hardest problem.
That's my problem, is coming in and maybe getting, you know, a test project is the dumbest setup, because you're setting yourself up for failure. If only, say, 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 actually hit, and that's for in-house guys in the trenches, know the business, working there every day. I'm setting myself up for epic failure to be like, why don't we test it out, see how it goes? And then they're like, sure, we can't get this guy to sell.
Right.
You said you're Kyle Milligan and you know all the stuff, so you sell them.
Yeah.
And I've found myself in that position now, and I'm a slow learner. Like, I pick up the pattern after the third time. I'm like, damn it, it happened again, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I have to figure out a way to show up. But I also get it from the publisher side. They're paid on P&L. They, things have been rough the last few years.
No, I don't excuse that. If you're a publisher, this is something that, I would like to, regardless of what business you're in, if you're running a business and you're doing direct response copy and you're not really good at it, then you have to find a different way than just trying one person out one piece of copy. It doesn't work that way. I would say the same thing for both people, the copywriter and the person that's hiring. Even if you're selling widgets, it doesn't matter. Is that you have to, and this is something I was saying the other day about when I was talking to our Japanese members about negotiating. You have to negotiate a relationship with them, not a not a transactional thing. It doesn't make sense because as you say, front end copy. If you can write one winner out of 3 or 4, you're a superstar. So it doesn't make any sense for the publisher to do that. What they're doing is they're bumping up against somebody that can really help their business grow, like you, and then they're dismissing you because the one thing they gave you to do that nobody else has been given to do. So I think the advice for both sides of the coin would be develop a relationship, decide. You do 2 front ends, 1 back end. You've got to make a bigger commitment. And if you're not willing to make that commitment, then you shouldn't be hiring somebody to solve your problems.
So here's like a valuable conversation, because if, say, we're talking to freelancers, copywriters, what have you, I'm sure they've been in my position.
Right.
I have no leverage.
Right.
They say, well, here's your first project, here's the results. It didn't bomb, it didn't have 0 sales, but they weren't happy. It didn't hit benchmarks. It's like,
well, you're not gonna...
here's one other thing I'll slide in there, and again, this is just a personal gripe. I don't know. The excitement that they had for the first project, right? Like when the first project was on, wow, this is great, And then it's like the idea of the big idea. Like, you don't know it was a big idea until it's already been successful.
Right.
You might have had 10 big ideas, but they all of a sudden became small ideas because they failed. It's like when the first thing was presented the first time around, and everyone's like, wow, we're excited for this. And then it just didn't resonate. It didn't hit for whatever reason. Structurally sound, good copy, does all the things. And it's like, part of me wants to remind them, like, you liked the first project, right? Like, you saw the potential there.
Right.
So, like, even one thing that I missed until this happened recently, when I first started and I had that abrasiveness, was that ego. As I've gotten older and had to take way more lumps and take way more criticism and feedback, and there's seems to be more chains in the chain of command every day. Like, it's now like I gotta go through 6 people instead of just the copy chief. I've become a lot more like accepting. There was something about this remark of, we have to see how this one goes, because we weren't happy with that last one kind of comment. It struck the ego in a way that I haven't been struck in like years, which is like, did you ever watch the Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan?
Yes.
There's that famous line, he goes,
right.
and I took that personally.
Right.
Like some weird innocuous thing where he's just like, I took that personally.
Yeah.
I took it personally. I took it as if you don't see that I can do this with 2 or 3 attempts.
Yeah.
You saw like the one and that was good enough. And I want to remind that person, but you were excited for that project. You thought it was going to work. Both of us did.
Right.
I took all your feedback. I implemented the shit out of it. You were like, great. And then it just didn't work. But now I don't have any leverage in this relationship. Right now, I'm a cost instead of a profit source.
Right.
So it's like, what advice would you give me, and therefore everyone else who's ever been in this situation? How do because again, I don't want it to be combative. I don't want it to be like, I got leverage on you. But I actually called Joe this morning because he was busy, so I'm going to talk to him after this. And the question I'm going to ask him is like, how do I reposition this? Like, how do I bring it back?
Well, again, I think the answer, I have the same answer for everybody, is that if you want to grow your business, you can't grow it based on individual transactions. It's a very weak way to grow, because what you're doing when everything's a transactional. I'll give you one copy right now, and then I'll decide if I'll give you another one, and I'll be less enthusiastic. It's a losing train. You have to make, it's like having a family. You have to make a commitment, and it has to last. And both people have to understand that. Now, the problem is, let's say the general market of copy chiefs and publishers and manufacturers or whatever don't get that, and they want to do the transactional stuff. So then you only have one choice. You can become, a super famous copywriter that everybody will pay tons of money for, and so you only need 4 jobs a year. Or you could do like Clayton Makepeace, get to that point. But the only way you can even do that is what you need to do is find a match. You need to find a client that's big enough that that's not only big enough, but you have a relationship where they'll give you some leeway to establish yourself, and you become kind of like a client. I mean, almost an employee.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it possible to do this relationship without committing to being like an in-house copywriter?
Yeah. No, nothing is better for, especially today, to be like an in-house copywriter, but not be in-house and be able to do other things. We could talk about this forever, but one of the great impediments to growing a business is everything that has to do with going inside and getting insecure. And, I don't know copy, so my answer is, rather than give somebody more extension, I'm going to tighten up. This whole thing is just crazy, where people, copywriters fight about, oh, you stole my idea, all this stuff is completely silly. I think the greatest insight I had is or ego I had was I could say, I thought to myself, well, I can do that myself. I'll do it next time. I see somebody beating me. I feel great. I'm like, wow, I can just take that idea and use it on my own. And when Agora was growing, that was my rule. You can't plagiarize from each other, but you can steal ideas right and left, and the more the merrier, because it's not as I say, it's never the idea. This whole idea of the big idea was brought, Bill popularized it, and let me just say this. It's not the big idea. It's the individual articulation of the idea.
Okay.
We had one of our publishers trying to write a package about the end of America, the Armageddon, financial Armageddon. Their entire franchise was devoted for it. They spent 8 or 10 years putting out 3 or 4 of those packages every single year at great expense. It never worked. And then one of our other publishers, who too, decided he was never in favor of that. He was a bull. And then he decided, okay, I'm going to do it. And he did, his first package was the biggest success in 10 years. And then the other person is complaining about it, just so silly, as I said, the more the merrier. So it's a general, so I would say that what you need to do is, of course, in the beginning, when you're starting off, you got to get clients. And I would say, do not accept a job where they say nobody's been able to do this.
Okay.
That's foolish. Your chances of succeeding are 10% at best. Accept work. Try to get work that as close as you can to back-end work. They're giving their best copywriters back-end work. Back-end work generally is much easier than front-end work. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that's, and they're going to try to position you. Don't let yourself be the savior. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
I mean, I can't be the savior. If they came in, I think I'm the savior. I think I know exactly what they should do.
I know that feeling.
But sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes I'm right. So I would say don't do that, and try to develop as many. This is another thought I always had. I always have more time. I can always outwork everybody else. So if you don't like me, F you, I'm going to go. I have 6 other people I've lined up. And so, that's what I would say. You've got to don't be dependent. This is another way of saying it. I will never be disappointed if somebody doesn't like an idea or something I do, because I've already prepared myself. I mean, literally, I do this in all of my business. I immediately, when I have a plan, I start imagining, visualizing the plan failing. And I learned this from my wife, because when we first were married, we would decide to do something on the weekend, like go to the zoo or go to the movies. And I got so fixated on that like at the last moment when she said she didn't want to go, I would go nuts. I mean, I wouldn't. But it was so upsetting to me. Yeah. And so I had to find a way. And my way was, as soon as I said, let's go to the zoo, I started imagining her saying, I'm not going to go to the zoo. And then I started thinking about what would I want to do. There's a movie I want to see, or there's a book I want to read. And I would think about that all week, to the point when it was time to go to the zoo, I almost didn't want to go to the zoo anymore. And sure enough, when there was a 70 or 80% chance it didn't bother me. And so that's what I do with everything. Every project, every new idea, I'm just pitching a whole new idea about how to survive the coming AI Armageddon to the Agora people. And I like my idea a lot, but I'm already thinking about what if it's wrong, because you can't, what you can do is always have something else in the chamber. And if you're creative, the more things, it's not like you have a limit. The more bullets you can mint to put in the chamber, the easier it is. It's like I don't know if you've ever done a blog, but doing a weekly blog is tough. Doing a monthly blog is even tougher. Doing a daily blog is easy. Easy. And everybody that's doing daily blogs realize that's because when you're doing a daily blog, first of all, the expectations you have of yourself and they have of you are lower, because you're coming out with stuff every day, and it's tend to be of a certain. It's not deep analytical stuff with lots of sources and research. You're commenting on the news and stuff, and once you get yourself into the mode of doing it every day, the stuff is written in your head before you even you sit down, because everything you're reading and so on, you're filtering through this anticipation. So I think just the creative mind itself is strengthened by allowing yourself to keep coming up with ideas constantly, and some you use and some you don't use. I mentioned this recently. I saw this in person, in action, a long time ago when J. Abraham, the famous J. Abraham, came down to join my partner and I to do a project with us. And he was pitching these ideas to my partner. My partner was 10 years older than me. Jay's, I think, just a couple years older than me. And he already had a bit of a legendary status. And I was a corporate guy now because I was working for him. But of course, I wanted to be like Jay. And I noticed he was pitching these ideas to Joel, and Joel was like shooting them down. And I'm saying that's a good idea. And Joel's just saying, no, we can't do that for this reason. I'm feeling like going, yes, we can. Why are you pitching it down? But it didn't bother Jay at all. He must have knocked down 8 or 10 ideas, but he had another one coming up. And I thought, how does he do that? We talk about the ego, It's just because there's so many in the chamber. So we're really talking about the process of creativity and how if you become, I don't want to call it what you want, super creative. If you become fluent at generating pretty good ideas, and you'll just get more and more of them, and that's a protection against being kind of victimized by people that might not recognize your talent and are always just giving you the one shot at the hardest job.
That is I was trying to think of how to explain to you that I took it personal.
Yeah.
And you said people who might not recognize your talent. When I saw someone say that first try didn't go the way we expected, the ego in me said, you don't see, and remember, so the ego, you don't see my greatness. I knew it was my ego talking because the resonance of the feeling I had was, I'll show you. Whenever I have that feeling, I'll show you. The chip on your shoulder kind of deal, like I'll prove you wrong. As soon as I have that, I'm like, okay. That's when I decide, like, okay, think about it. And then also, that's when I had the cue to, like, let me call Joe and see what he would say. my greatness is being threatened, and I have to find someone who can navigate those waters with grace.
Recognize your greatness.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think that's a fairly common response. I had it recently when a friend of mine actually, I had written something on statins, and I saw him, because he left it in the email chain, introducing my article to a friend of his who was a doctor or something, saying, what do you think of this? But yeah, I have that too. In fact, I would say that at least 70% of all the products I've created and businesses I've created were fueled by somebody telling me it's a bad idea. Yeah.
That was something, though, because of my posture now in the space. Like, I've got your attention, right? Like that, I haven't had to deal with that in a long time. And it was like it was a recognition of like, that's what that's what got me up in the morning.
Right.
Like when I made my first, I don't know, I always dance around this. Like when I made my first 7 figures with royalties off copy, that year I worked on approximately like 50 promotions. And I had a team of like a dozen writers. And at the end of it, I was exhausted. But I had made my mark, I had made my money, and I sort of did like the old stoic guy sort of drifts off into obscurity, like, I'm good.
Right.
And then like very recently, I had that remark, come up in a Slack message, and I felt it get re-triggered, and I was like, I'm going back, I'm gonna write 50 promotions this week, and I'm gonna make $1 gazillion, and you know what, I'm gonna go do it at this other publisher, and I'm gonna grow it to 10 times the size of Agora, and it's gonna, so like, I was like, that's when I had to like pull it back in, and then it actually brings it all the way back, because then I'm like, okay, how can I do that, satisfy the ego, go teach someone a lesson, go make money somewhere else, but I would also like to do it, now that I have the ability to, I'd like to come back and bring it back to Agora.
Right, of course.
And that goes all the way back to what you were saying about, well, I want someone loyal to me, that doesn't pitch me on the iceberg and all that stuff. After I left Agora and I worked at this place called Wealth Press so that's like part 2 of my bio. I got recruited to this place called Wealth Press.
We'll eventually get there. This is supposed to be an hour. It's going to be an 8 hour.
So in 2019, so in 2017, I started Agora October. In September something of 2019, a place called Wealth Press, Morgan Busby, Connor Lynch, and Roger Scott. I didn't meet Roger. I met Connor and Morgan and John Knutson in Washington, D.C. And they had a $2 million year. They wanted to do what Agora was doing. And they were selling like DVDs on like how to trade options, like or video series for like $7 or $12. And I had this, I'll tell you the idea because that's a funner conversation, and then I'll get back to the bio. So the idea, my first idea, I wanted to come and make a splash. Again, I had a chip on my shoulder from the time I was born until about 2 or 3 years ago. And I was like, well, I got to show these guys like what I can do. They had this DVD set or video series called the V-Bounce Strategy. And what it was is it was a technical trading thing. They would trade off the support line. So a stock would bounce off the support line and go back up. So when it would hit the support line on the technical indicator, and they call it the V-Bounce Strategy, and they sold you videos on how to do it. I took that idea, I said, I'm gonna sell this $10 video for $2,500. And they all gasped. Like, no, you can't sell that for $2,500. It's a support bounce. It's the most basic technical indicator. And I said, that is basic. The V-bounce is basic. Give me a minute. So like I disappeared for a while, and I was like, but you know what's not basic? So I come back like 2 weeks later, I'm like, you know what's not basic? On the clock stocks. And so I had this idea that when a stock had certain criteria, it was on the clock. And we could count down to the moment that it was time to place the trade.
Yeah, that's nice,
So the delta between the stock price and the support line was a timer that you would count down. And when it hit 0, place a trade. I made $800,000 with that. The year before, they were a $2.5 million business. And so I made my mark there. And then very shortly after, I became a copy chief there. So that all happened. I remember I wrote it like in like the first month and a half that I was there. Like I really wanted to impress. That was the place where I did all the professional things that I really thought I wanted to do, which was I became a copy chief, which was my aspiration since I learned about copy. I had a team of like a dozen writers.
Right.
My second promotion there went on to do like $15 million and paid me a lot of royalties. I made some gurus millionaires. I made a junior copywriter that I met, and I trained him on copy. He now is basically the publisher there since I've left. I helped him reach 7 figures in royalties. I pulled a guy who was like a VP in a logistics company, kicking and screaming, because he was in one of my mentorship programs, and he showed up to a call trying to do he had this idea for photo shoot ready. He was like a bodybuilder, and he's like always photo shoot ready, and that was like his idea. And he showed me his copy, and he was following my system. And the left of the margins, he had a bracket for all of my techniques. And line by line, he identified there was purpose in every line. There was purpose. And I said, I could make you very rich. And he was already doing a couple $100,000 a year. He was high up at a VP company. This was a passion project. And I was like, quit that job and make you rich.
Wow.
It took me he worked for free for 3 months for Wealth Press and me, because he didn't believe me until I finally got his first project out, and I was like, quit your job, quit your job, work for me. Anyway, he's now a senior writer over there today, far out earning what he used to do there. When I left that year, we did $50 million in revenue. For me, it had sort of become what I had become a writer to avoid. We were pumping out a promo a week, which is why I had to have such a big writing staff. It was the pace. I didn't like it. I was working round the clock, and this is why I got into writing. So I got into royalties. This is why I got into not having a 9 to 5. So it kind of crescendoed. And I was like, I'm going to go hang my shingle. I know enough people in the space, and I know what I'm doing. I've proven it to myself. I have the confidence to go do it. So in 2021, I started Copy Squad. And my idea was basically take all the stuff that I had learned on teaching other writers and just start teaching that to new writers, bring up a new crop, and I wanted to just replicate myself. The problem I had at Copy Squad, and I've since sort of unwound a lot of the coaching the writers thing. Copy Squad doesn't work for my model. It doesn't work. I can take someone green. I was able to get some senior level guys, or at least they were tenured, but they weren't. The reason they would come to me was because they weren't making money. There was something missing. It was mostly work ethic. What I ended up finding all the time was they wanted it to be a part-time gig. And I tried a lot. I had a couple good hits with the juniors that I brought on and trained, a couple, but that was over a couple years. I never found that success, and I was stubborn. I gave it 4 years of just sinking. And I could have cranked out, my average turnaround time on a promo was approximately 30 hours of chair time.
Wow.
I track it. When I sit down to write, I put it on my Google Calendar.
And that's a promo of what length?
8,000, 9,000 words. I'm very mechanical about that. And trying to figure out because I wanted to replicate it in other people. This is how long it should take you to write this section. Do all your research for this many days, then write this section with that information, this section. I got it all broken out so I could teach it to others. So that's part one was Agora, part 2 was Wealth Press, part 3 was Copy Squad. Since then, I have gotten back in the writing chair because it took so much of my time and energy to rewrite people's stuff. There was no original Kyle works. And then what happened after 3.5, 4 years, as I looked at our royalty statements and all the money we had made, and I don't say this with joy. All the best promos were the ones that I had to fire the writer and then start over. The ones where I just rewrote or coached would always barely make a dent. And so the writing was on the wall. I got to do it. If I want to actually make money, it's got to be me. And so there were no purely original Kyle promos for like the last 3 years. There's maybe 2 or 3 actually went out. And so now here we are having this conversation. I'm back in the freelancing position with my hand out, like, hey, can I write some promos for you? Well, that first one didn't really take off the way we wanted. And now I'm like, what? That's how we come all the way from the bio of like how I even started and all that stuff to where I'm sitting here right now, as recent as in the last 7 days.
Well, that reminds me of we were in France 15 years ago for an Agora retreat, and Bill always made a speech, and he would actually write notes for it, and I thought it was very nice. And I remember the beginning of the speech. I remember the first and last lines. The first line was, we work in the most miserable industry on earth, or something like that. And then I'm like, oh God, here we go. and then the last line was, and that's why I keep a loaded gun next to my bed. And so this, for some reason, it was magic, because I was always the push, go get it, we could do it. But for some reason, Bill's these speeches created some kind of responsive energy that worked. I don't know why I said that, but
Bill's got a crazy charisma.
Oh, I know.
Though.
We're in a tough industry. It's tough to do what we do. It's tough to be. It's like you're a competitive athlete. I told this to my son, Michael, after he had a very good early run, and he was offered the job of being copy chief. I said, take it, because, if you get a good team, you can take credit for all the good stuff. You can criticize other people for the bad stuff. That's certainly what I did. And then if you got the right structure and it's growing, you'll make a lot of money. But if you want to stay in the game in that level, financial, to me that's like the NBA. You have to. That's a game for athletes, like intellectual athletes, and you age out of that. It's very hard. You'll see very few guys that are in their 60s that are still writing competitive copy at our level. Even those guys that were once great, you simply can't do it when you get older. You don't have the mental energy, and so. So, you're putting yourself, this is my point, you're putting yourself back in a very competitive environment. It's like you're Michael Jordan, you took 6 years off, and now you're coming back to the same NBA with the same level. So, but of course there's a million other things. You don't have to always compete at the highest level to make a lot of money. But, we should stop right now, because we should switch. I want to talk about I want you to explain one of you're like me in the sense, and like I guess Joe and you mentioned Evaldo too, that we like to have systems, to how to understand and teach things. And you explained a system that day, which I think it was NESB or something that I like very much. I like the simplicity of it, and the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, that's exactly right. And what I like about this is none of what you're about to tell our audience is going to be new to them, if they've been reading about how to do copy. But it's the idea of, to me, this was revolutionary. It was the idea of realizing that, like, every 200 words of your 8,000 word needs to do these 5 things. And that would blew me away. So maybe you could just go over the
Sure.
5.
Yeah, I've been talking about this since the beginning. I can even give you the whole background on it and everything. While we're taking a pivot, are you interested in smoking during this conversation?
Sure.
I brought these for you.
Always.
Okay, I want to explain this a little bit, and then I'm going to jump into the copy stuff. I got 2 nice cigars, nice expensive cigars, Cohiba Serie M. I've never had these, and they mean nothing to me. Okay, and that's kind of why I got these. So now, whenever I do have this in the future, it will have meaning.
Okay.
It'll be that conversation that I had with Mark. These will be that cigar.
Okay.
So they will, after today,
all right,
have a special.
Now, these are from where? Are these supposedly?
It says Miami on them,
okay,
so I guess they're not
honest,
Cuban. Yeah.
No, they're not Cuban. if you're buying, virtually all the Cuban cigars you'll buy in the States are fake. They're not real because there's no reason for Cuba to sell their cigars to Americans. They sell 100% of their cigars right off the rack to Europeans who pay full price for them. If you go to Europe and you smoke a Cohiba, it's going to cost you between $30 and $50 US dollars.
I had one in Poland.
For a single stick.
It was terrible because they didn't know how to keep it. It was like a rock.
Right, exactly. And I spent 10 or 15 years, going to Europe every year with our European offices. And every time I would go in there, I would bring my favorite cigars, which tended to be Nicaraguan.
Mine too,
and I would smoke them against the Cubans. And the Nicaraguans were always better. They were better because the Cuban cigars are badly made. And they're structured. They're either too tight or too loose.
Let's throw these in the trash.
Yeah, and you just spend $30 or $40 on a cigar, and you're like, so. And surprise, surprise. I don't know why I was surprised. Imagine you take a great industry and you yoke it under communism for 10 or 15 years, and guess what? The products get worse. And so I don't know why But you know what? But they're always, the Cigar Official magazine did a brilliant job, and I met the publisher there once. What they did to make that work was, when they came out, the Americans couldn't buy the cigars back then anyway.
Yeah.
But everybody thought Cubans were always the best. So when they would rate cigars every month, whenever they rated cigars, they would always rate like the top 5 were all Cuban, right? Knowing that nobody was going to taste them anyway. But that gave, and sometimes then it would slip another cigar within the top 5. And guess what? That other cigar that got to 4th place, it also took out 3 pages of advertising in the back. I mean, the whole thing was beautifully rigged and engineered.
First day at Agora, I walk in, remember, the little Delray Beach office over here across from Smoke Inn. I walked in, Evaldo was coming up from Miami. I was like sitting at the desk. He gets there, and I'm like, eager beaver, like, all right, I got a new job. I'm a writer. It's what I wanted. I want to be great. And all copywriters, every copywriter I've ever interviewed is like, I want to be the greatest. It's like you said with athletes, like if you ever say you want to be the greatest NBA player, you would expect to practice 6 times a day for 2-hour sessions. Right. I can't get any copywriters to break down a promo a week. It's like, you want to be the greatest? What do you think this is? So I wanted to be good. I wanted to be great. And Evaldo comes in, I say, hey man, and this might be like maybe the first time I met him in person. I can't remember, but like, first day. And I asked, like I said, hey, I've read the Boron letters, which everyone on the internet told me to read. I read Dan Kennedy's Ultimate Sales Letter, and I read Joe Sugarman's Adweek Copywriting Handbook. What other books should I read, like, to make sure that I'm great? Right. And Evaldo said, that's enough. Stop reading books. No more books. He said, you can read Great Leads. That's the only other book I would recommend, but stop. No more reading about copy. Just read copy. And that actually made it into the book that I wrote called Take Their Money. Right. And that's where I talk about NESB and all this stuff. I wrote that philosophy became my driving force. And what Take Their Money is while it is a book about copy, it's a book describing how to read copy, how to do what Evaldo told me to do. Stop reading about copy and read the copy. And so I started reading a lot of copy and breaking it down. The first format I ever got was from Joe, which was the 4 Ps. Push, picture, promise, and...
Produce? No.
Proof.
Yeah. Prove.
Push, picture, promise, proof. And I started marking up all the Ps. I also got the 4 Us, which I felt like was like a headline format. Urgent.
Yeah,
it was
headline and bullet format.
Yeah, useful. And I structure them in this order:
useful,
unique, useful, urgent, ultra specific.
Yeah, we had to get specific in there, so we threw in ultra.
So that's what I did. I just sat down every day, and when I came to Florida for the job, I came alone from North Carolina, and I didn't know anybody in Florida, so I ended up renting this room in this woman's house. She would host traveling nurses, so I was basically in this room. I was paying monthly to just have this bedroom. and I had my suitcase and my car, and that was it. So I would spend all my free time at work. I would go to, there was a gym nearby, I'd go at lunch, and then I had nowhere to go and nothing to do. So that's actually where I picked up the cigar habit. Across the street was Smoke Inn. So I'd print out a promo. We had industrial, like, you know, commercial grade printers. I'd print the promo. I'd go across when the office closed, and I'd sit down at Smoke Inn at the bar, and I'd read the promos, and I'd smoke a cigar, and that's like actually how I developed the cigar habit. So I did that for a year, and my first promo came out. It was for James Altucher. It's called the hottest IPO in history. So many of those promos are happening right now with Elon Musk's SpaceX and Starlink and all that stuff. The hottest IPO in history format. That came out, we wrote it in 2017. It came out in like January, February of 2018. So it's a proven format, still working to this day in 2026. They're still making those promos. That one worked really well. And then I wrote one for Jim Rickards. It was supposed to be a bulleted outline for a conversation between him and Pete Coyne about crypto. And Jim is not a crypto guy, but they wanted him to pick a coin and base it on his philosophy. Because he's a gold bug, and it was like, but crypto's too hot to ignore. So I wrote a promo, again with Evaldo, called the 70-cent crypto. And it went nuts. It made, this is one of the worst, best successes. It made like $5 million, like in the first 48 hours.
Wow.
Pete left a voicemail on my phone. I think I still have it in my digital voicemail box. I think I delete all of them except for like that one and another one. He's like, congratulations, it's working. It was my second promo. I was very happy. I was very proud. I got like a follow-up, and I don't know if I handled it great or not, but like a week or two later, they told me, okay, so your royalties, we have to tell you something. Because the promo was so unlike anything Jim had ever done before, and it was positioned a little bit like a special new thing, over half of the purchases were existing customers who rebought his Currency Wars alert service.
You rebought what you already were selling?
Yeah. So I lost like $3 million of sales like overnight. They had to like comp them, and like all of a sudden the royalty like dropped to like 2.1 million from when it was 5. That was a heartbreak. Then, and this goes back, I'll get to the NESB thing. Then someone somewhere said loud enough for me to hear the words Evaldo's boy.
Ooh.
And then the ego spiked up, and I was like, I don't need Evaldo. All right, so about this time I'm in copy camp. I go to the first copy camp. That class was a great class. My class of copy campers turned out to be solid copywriters. There's many of which are still in the industry. I watched progressively, they'd bring in 30 people and like one person would survive copy camp.
Yeah.
My class, I think we were cream of the crop of those groups, and I met a fella named Rob Braddock. Braddock says, hey man, you've been here like 2 or 3 months, you've already written like 2 promos. He's like, will you help me with this idea I have? It's called Trump bonus checks. And I was like, yes, one condition, no copy chiefs, Evaldo can't touch it. And it was just the chip on my shoulder. They're caught. This is probably one of the first times Joe had to step in and save me. Like, I think it caused some friction with me and Evaldo. I don't think Evaldo took kindly to that. Like, I wanted to oust him. He had hired me and he was chiefing me, but my ego was so threatened that people said, Evaldo's boy. Meaning, in my ears, Evaldo's rewriting all your copy anyway, you suck. Because of just the way I'm sensitive. So I was like, fuck that. And then I also, because of the nature of copy camp, we had to write it in like 1 week. So I was like, again, this is the thing I tell you, I lost with my success in old age. But I told Rob, I said, conditions, I chief it, Evaldo can't touch it, we have to stay till 10 p.m. and finish it in a week. And so every day we do all the stuff, and we stay till 10 p.m. I remember we get the little Chinese takeout from around the corner in Baltimore, and we'd stay at the basement in 808 till 10 p.m. We did it. It was a monster success. 30,000 names, which was a huge deal, especially back then, and especially for me, because we didn't have a chief. We didn't have Evaldo. It was like my way of saying, nothing bad to Evaldo, but to the people who said I couldn't do it. Always, I'll show you, I'll show you, I'll show you. So what I did for Trump bonus checks was I printed and notated line for line of all those Congress checks promo. And I followed beat by beat. When did he put a gain? When did he put a testimonial? When did he put a demonstration? When did he put background story? And I had different color highlighters for each section. And I started writing circles around, look, Rob, I'd sit down with Rob, see when he repeats this refrain, he does it 3 times on page 1, twice on page 2. Notice now it starts to come every other page, but he never stops saying it. And that was kind of like the basis. A year after I started Agora, I gave myself permission to start sharing what I knew. I basically said that I wasn't going to be a phony guru who just started yesterday, because I was also had a chip on my shoulder about this. When I was trying to learn copy and turning to the internet, I was reading all the books. I was doing all the bullshit the internet told me to do. When Uvaldo told me stop doing that and just read copy, all of a sudden I got way better at copy. And I was like, now I was mad at the internet. Like I took everything personally, everything. I was like, you fuckers wasted all my time. You wasted, I could have been so great so sooner. So now I was like, well, I'm not going to be one of them either.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, what I used to do is I used to make people handwrite promotions, the great promotions. It was a little bit.
There's something to that, because you start to recognize what words, like when you're writing them, you start to realize they say this word a lot, or they use this a lot.
And the reason, it probably wasn't a silly idea, but this is all Aristotle. This is memetics. This is how you teach profound things, is by having your students repeat the parts of it over and over again until it becomes, an unreflective response where you're kind of like generating this stuff without thinking about it. And there's also like, when you're reading there's stuff you get from, in linguistics they call it super segmental something. I remember this is from graduate school, but it's the stuff that it can't actually be defined, obviously with diagrams and so on, but it's patterns in the copy that just you just settle in to your brain, and those things like can have a very big effect. You actually analyzed one specifically by doing the highlights, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what you were not. When you get your learning from a book, you're discovering. Let's say if it's a good one, the big secrets, right? That usually more mature copywriters they discover later on. When you're starting out, those things, even if they're told, somebody said, they mean nothing to you, because you're still trying to figure out how to write the first sentence, and so you eat up a lot of that stuff. And I think it is good. You have to go through the process, whatever you're learning, jiu-jitsu, whatever. You have to learn a lot of little secrets, but then you're right. You have to go out and practice them, and practicing them, and reading them are essential. So I think the point is that you that thing that Uvaldo gave you permission to do allowed you to do this critique of.
And I was just about to take that critique to tying it to the NESB thing. I brought like this big white backdrop, and I'd put it behind me. When the office would close and everyone would go home, I would bring the white backdrop and I'd set it behind my desk, and I would turn on my laptop and camera, and I would break down promos in this way on camera. And this again, I wanted to wait a year until I knew what I was doing. I had success to speak on before I started speaking, because I was so bitter with the people who had done it without any success. And so I developed NESB live on camera. It's like it's recorded on YouTube, where I broke down a couple promos. It was the Money Zone promo by Money Map with Shah Jalani that I discovered the first like 2 or 3. I was like, look, they keep saying over and over how easy this is. They keep saying over and over they got 93% certainty or accuracy. They keep saying how safe it is. And they keep saying that nothing like this has ever been done. It's the newest, most original. And I wrote in the margins, new, easy, and safe. And I might have even written all 4, but I think that didn't come to maybe like the second video. And I started just like breaking down promos for like 2 hours, just me live streaming to nobody.
Yeah.
And I started getting like 10, 15 people. I never thought anyone on earth would sit through that.
Right.
I would get like 15 to so people, and that blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I need to do something. If I got viewers, I created a lead magnet, and I said, I'll give you the PDF that I'm breaking down. Just put your email in here. And that was the original basis for what would become Copy Squad. At that time, it was just Kyle Milligan, the copywriter.
Right.
And I started building a list, and I had no idea what I was going to give them. But they were signing up for the PDFs. They were tuning into the lives, and I would alert them, hey, we're going live. And then I'd have people, regulars, talking to me. And so the book that I wrote was Take Their Money. And I basically laid out new, easy, safe, and big.
Right.
And I said, these are the 4 most simple, basic emotions that you can revisit, and you can say them dead on the nose. And it will trigger people.
Yeah, I like that point that you made that, you know, if you're, the term, any terms that we use to teach copywriting, like direct or indirect, or, you know, the types of leads, it's a phrase. And it's not, there's a difference between what those words are they're embedded benefits or embedded promises. You're saying it's big, it's new. You see, the only time I mentioned this to you, the only time I never thought that way. I was analytic in a different way, and I would do what, you know, like what we did in Great Leads and so on. But I remember when Mike Palmer, after I said this to you, after I mentored him, and then all of a sudden he was knocking the ball out of the park constantly. And so I went back and I asked him, what's your secret? And he just said, no, I just want to make sure it's new. I don't want to read anything that's seen. And I'm like, well, shit. I mean, that doesn't help me really. I mean, because, yeah, of course you want it new, but how do you make it new? I don't know. And I think he was very good as a copy chief because that's what he said. And I think that was his main thing. And then he could, just imagine, within reading the first 150, 200 words, he would just give it back to them. So the amount of work they had to do, he was forcing them to create something. If you can't get the new in there, nobody's going to keep reading. They feel like they've read it before. So I thought it was brilliant in a way. And then it makes sense that how do I make this seem new? And you got to do that early on, right?
Right away.
And then the big comes later. It was new. Safe was interesting. I hadn't thought about safe. Wait, new,
easy, safe,
easy, yeah. Easy. I discovered easy is so important, and it's funny. None of that stuff existed in Agora land because Agora was always about the big idea. And anyway, we understand where that goes, and it's amazing when that works. But the easy thing, I did discover the safe thing. I'll tell you how. When I came to Agora. Agora had the reputation of being super creative, and because Bill was writing all the copy, you know, and then when I went there, and they were doing well, but Phillips Publishing, that didn't have any geniuses, was always beating us and getting more. And I was like, then I did what you did. I just studied there, and I realized that one of the things that they always did was they would say, talk about how the guru, although he's giving you this amazing secret, he's super conservative. He hates taking risk. And so I recognize that was an aspect that we never talked about. You know, it wasn't even in Bill's copy. It's not in the consciousness. He's you know, it's not the big idea. When you're writing a big idea, you're not very concerned with the reader's emotional reaction to it. You're concerned with how great your idea is. And if you write this amazing idea that's like writing a great book, then you'll have somehow figured all that stuff out. But what I did literally is I forced all our copywriters to talk about how safe and conservative our gurus were. And all of a sudden, we started beating them. That was the only thing that we needed. And I was like, and that brought me into that concept of looking at copy the way you look at copy. And the new thing I always still have problems with, safe, what was the other one? I'm sorry.
Big. New, easy, safe, and big.
Yeah, easy is another huge one because I learned that late too. I mean, we had this, I was listening to this guy speak at one of our seminars. I think this is, I don't remember. It was one of our seminars in Florida. And he was talking about this great system he had. I don't even remember. Was it a copy system? Was it an investment system? It didn't matter. But he gave us all delivery, and it sounded intriguing. It sounded, there was proof, there was all the P's. It was like a direct mail package he was reciting. But it was complicated, you know. It was, and so at the end, he said, at the end, it was like he was closing, and you were going to get this 400-page volume of things to do to just follow it. And he said, or if you want, you could just buy this little computer chip for, you know, like $4,000, and it'll do it for you. Like the crowd, like rushed to the table, you know. And so I was like, oh damn, I got to remember that too. And so. Now, I asked you to explain it, and now I'm explaining it for you. And
well, that's good. You're seeing it through your own lens.
Yeah. And then the big thing, of course, is if it can be big. And that's the essence of the big idea, of course. And there are many ways of making it big. It's a challenge. But
that's always the hardest one for me to define.
No, because it's hard to define, and you're right, because when people talk about a big idea, they're not talking about ideas. But Bill meant an actual idea. It has to be a big idea, an idea that has a transformative power over like the entire global economy, and an idea that you will debate for a couple of years, like you know, like theories about economics or so on. We don't need to go into it, but these other big, easy, safe, and not big. I'm sorry.
New, easy, safe, and big.
Yeah, those are just they're so important, and they can make such an impact on your copy. You don't realize it. And what I loved about what you said is that they're so core. You would describe them as emotions. I would say that they almost are so core that they appeal to almost the reptilian brain. Mm-hmm. You know, it's going beyond your normal emotional brain and getting almost reptilian. And so what I love that you said, and it made perfect sense to me, is you don't have to all the time just show people how this is safe indirectly, like saying he's a very conservative guy, he won't take chances on anything. This would be quite direct. You can sometimes just say, this is really safe, you know, and just keep saying this is really safe, and it works, you know? And so, and what's easier than that, right? You run out of, I have 3 indirect ways, and now I'm gonna just say safe, because this is what I love about your formula, because and I don't know what exactly it is, but if it's every 600 words, I have to do one of those in each one, and you kind of run out. Then you throw in just a simple, and it's safe, or this is big. This is a big idea, you know.
We've never seen anything like this. Nothing in our history has prepared us. There's unprecedented for the first time ever. All these lines.
And suddenly when you see it through that lens, you know, you can actually retroactively look at all Agora's greatest promotions, and you can see all of that in it. You know, whether it's The End of America or The Plague of the Black Death, it was big. It was brand new. The safe and easy part, I'm not sure about. We were selling fear then, so what
you're selling is with safe is the certainty.
Yeah.
So even if it's fear-based. Mm-hmm. It's 100% certain it's going to happen. Right. There's no doubt whatsoever.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that, and by the way, I've been doing it ever since then. I've been using that as part of my when I'm critiquing. I can critique copy very quickly, but I usually do it because most copy fails with a lead. You can tell from the lead it's not going to work. And so I use the thing John Ford and I did. I say, this is a secret lead. I do one of the 2 things. This is a secret lead, but you're not following the rules of the secret. It's a secret lead, and at word 200, you gave away the secret. It's dead. The copy's dead. Or you're doing a promise lead, but it's turning out crass and unbelievable, whereas if you did a story lead or a secret lead, it would be much stronger, and you know, that kind of analysis. But what I'm doing now with is I still do that for the lead, to straighten up the lead real quick. But then as you go through the copy, I could see like, well, you're now 13 pages and you've never mentioned that this thing is safe, except in the very beginning again. So, and now if you mention it's safe, it's almost as if it's like they feel like they're being manipulated because they haven't been. So anyway, I'm reacting to what in my mind makes your thing so effective that I can use it now when I'm working with copy. Just going through the copy, you're reinforcing those core ideas.
And the easy one I want to say for maybe people watching, like how would you do that with fear? The way you would do easy with fear, and you would recognize this in a heartbeat, is I've got 4 simple steps to protect your wealth from this terrible thing. Just follow my blueprint. Just follow my steps. Just take these steps.
And that's easy too, right?
Yeah, it's just easy. These 3 little steps will protect you from this massive American collapse of the financial system.
Right. Yeah, that's
very
good.
easy.
Right. And that kind of safe and easy sometimes go hand in hand. If it's that simple, then it feels safe. And there's all kinds of psychological studies that show that the simpler you make the idea and expression of the idea, the more believable it is.
How accessible is it to me?
Right.
Again, the reference I always make to demonstrate easy, like at a broad scale, is the one-legged golfer ad. He's got 1 leg.
That's good, yeah.
All right, you've got 2.
Right, yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, all this stuff is, I'm very excited about it. We only had a chance to really get into the first layer. And
we got to talk about my chip on my shoulder and my ego, and like 5 minutes of coffee.
Yeah, most. Well, these are important for if you're a copywriter, you're going to be suffering ego and all kinds of emotional distress for the rest of your life, and so
that's how you became a copywriter.
Right. And just remember, you are an athlete, and so you got to train. And I think this is really a new contribution to. Certainly to me and to the people I'm working with, a new way to really make the copy stronger. So thank you very much for sharing it with me.
I'm very humbled to hear that. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. If you like this content and you like more of it, you can get it in 2 places, DIYwealth, or you can get it in my blog, which is markford.net. And thank you very much.